I may have peaked with this mini cake. This is a coconut pineapple cake with a very simple whipped cream covered in desiccated coconut and topped with, dare I say, the most brilliant decoration idea I've ever come up with. And this is a small batch recipe meant for one serving as a part of my single serving mini cake series. I have never been prouder. To get started, I'm gonna cut up my fresh pineapple. You are welcome to use canned pineapple if you want to have more control over the quantity. Just make sure that you drain away all the excess liquids so you don't mess with the consistency of the cake batter. The main reason why I'm using a fresh pineapple is because I want to use this to make the decor for the cake. So I'm cutting up some fairly thin slices of the pineapple to make some circles, and we're going to be baking this with the cake, which is going to allow it to dry out, and that's what's going to make the pineapple flowers that I'm using as a cake topper. You want to cut the pineapple thin enough that it's able to dry out in the oven, but not too thin that it will fall apart. And it's also very important that you cut very even slices, because if you have parts that are super thin and parts that are really thick, the thinner parts are going to burn in the oven because it won't bake evenly. You want the pineapple slices to be malleable but still thick enough and opaque enough that it isn't flimsy. And I'm just placing them on paper towels to soak up the excess liquid to help with dehydrating it in the oven. To give the pineapple garnish its floral shape, I'm baking them in these individual egg tart molds. Make sure you grease it very well with some flavourless oil, then just place in the pineapple slices and press it down until it's your desired shape and set it aside. It's probably a good idea to prepare a couple more of these pineapple flowers than you think you'll need, because sometimes they either accidentally burn in the oven or they don't come out the way you want. It's always good to have options and bake them all in one go since it takes such a long time to dry out. You can also use cupcake tins or metal measuring cups. And for the pineapple going into the cake batter, I'm just dicing them up into small bits. Don't cut them up too small or you're not gonna get to feel the texture of the pineapple in the cake. And also, the pineapple would really struggle to retain its moisture and make the cake batter a bit soggy. Now to prepare the dry ingredients, I have my all-purpose flour, along with the cornstarch, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. And I have my desiccated coconut. This is unsweetened. If you are using sweetened, just make sure you reduce the sugar a little bit. And desiccated coconut basically just has the finest texture of coconut you can find. If you only have shredded coconut or coconut flakes, you can just pulse it up in a food processor to break it up a little bit. Add that to the rest of the dry ingredients and just give it a mix until combined. Now onto the wet ingredients. I have a big bowl here, and to it crack in the egg and add the white granulated sugar. When making cakes that aren't butter-based or a sponge cake, I always like to mix the egg and the sugar separately from all the wet ingredients, just to whip it up ever so slightly and incorporate a little extra air into an oil-based cake. Then to the eggs, add the flavourless oil, pineapple chunks, and coconut milk. Give the wet ingredients a quick mix just until incorporated. You don't want to overmix this because we don't want to completely deflate the eggs. Then in goes the dry ingredients and just mix until combined. As always, you never want to overmix your cakes, otherwise it's going to turn out quite tough. I make my mini cakes 4 inches. The exact pan I'm using is linked in the description. If you want to scale up, just make sure that you adjust the bake time accordingly and keep testing with a toothpick to see if it's properly cooked. I'm making a 2-layer cake, so I have 2 4-inch cake pans, which I'm lining the bottom with parchment paper. And I like to have my cake pans on a scale when I'm distributing the batter, just so I can see that the same amount is going into each one, and they'll end up baking into the same thickness. I'm attaching the cake strips. You can refer to my other mini cake videos if you've never used these before. And finally, give the cake pans a good tap on the counter before sending them into the oven, along with those pineapple flowers that we prepped earlier. Depending on the thickness of the pineapple, you might need to add on 5 to 10 minutes even after the cakes are done baking. And if you find that the pineapple is browning a little too quickly around the edges while the center is still really soft, you can just cover it in some foil to prevent it from burning and becoming way too crispy. Once the cakes are done baking, you want to let them cool completely before trimming off a little bit of the dome on the top so that they can stack nicely. I'm not going to be cutting these cakes into any more thinner layers because of the pineapple chunks inside. I find that it kind of makes the cake a little bit more fragile and I don't want the layers to break. And at this point, the pineapple flowers should have cooled completely. You want to let them cool inside of the mold so that it actually cools in the shape. I'm making a very straightforward whipped cream to decorate this cake. You can add a little bit of coconut extract if you'd like, but I'm just gonna stick with the vanilla extract. I say this every time when it comes to my mini cakes. If you're decorating a cake with whipped cream, you cannot over whip the cream. You don't want to bring it to stiff peaks. You want to stop it around medium stiff pretty much as soon as you're able to see really prominent tracks of the beater inside of the cream. And now we're ready to decorate.
Four feet on the stripes in the Alabama highway, out there in the open, just a wishing and a hoping. I could smell the pines when I let you in the doorway. Took the seat next to mine like you've been there before. I'm befriended in an illusion. I could never stand to lose you. I get by when you're at my side. I'm befriended in an illusion. At the end of my bed, in the palm tree lightning, it was nothing you did, I just felt my low lightning. Now we talk all the time, it's a little one-sided, always one step ahead, and I'm running behind you. I'm befriended in an illusion. I could never stand to lose you. I get by when you're at my side. I'm befriended in an illusion.